You know, in the early 70s, 1970s, Elder John Young, the late Elder John Young, had been visiting Sabah almost every year.
所以大概在70年代，就是已故的杨约翰长老几乎每年都都来沙巴。
At that time, I just came out of, I just finished school, so whenever Elder John Young came to Sabah, I will just take leave to accompany him and become his interpreter.
那时候我刚刚读完书，那每当杨约翰长老来沙巴的时候，我就会请假来陪他来做他的翻译。
Actually, at that time, we have only, about 40 churches and prayer houses throughout the state of Sabah.
所以当时在沙巴州教会和祈祷所总共只有40所。
And at that time, when the truth was preached to the natives, because we have quite a lot of native tribes in Sabah, they were very keen to accept the truth. But the sad thing is, we do not have these Malay speaking deacons or preachers at that time.
那当真理传到当地的土著人民的时候，那他们其实是很愿意来接受真理，但是可惜的是，我们没有很多可以讲马来语的传道来跟他们传福音。
So it was at that time when Elder John Young realized the potentials of these Malay-speaking workers who can really penetrate into these native areas.
那就是那个时候，杨约翰长老才意识到，有会说马来语的工人的重要性，因为他们才能够真正的更好的向这些土著人来传福音。
I remember at that time, Elder John Young, he was praying very hard. He was praying very hard, so that God will raise up, potential workers who can really contribute, their time and their talents to help out these people.
那我记得当时杨约翰长老非常努力的祷告求神能够兴起有潜能的工人，能够花他们的时间，还有用他们的恩赐来服侍这些人。
And when Elder Young realized that, at that time, most of the youth at that time in the 60s and 70s, they were not keen, and they don't seem to understand the basic doctrines of the church.
那当时杨约翰长老也发现了，就是那时候60跟70年代的青年人，他们并不是很热心，然后也没有完全的能够懂得我们教会的基本教义。
According to him, he once talked to me that the harvest in Sabah is a very great big one, but unfortunately the workers are so few.
他有一次告诉我说，在沙巴的庄稼许多，但可惜的是做工的人却少。
So according to him, we must pray to God to send out workers, so to go and harvest, to send out workers into the harvest.
所以他告诉我说，我们一定要祷告，求庄稼的主能够差派工人去收庄稼。
So I certainly believe, you see, when we identify certain places where there are so many people who are willing to accept the truth, we have to send out workers.
我坚信的，当我们发现了有 一些地方的人们很愿意来接受真理的话，那我们一定要差派工人去。
I will use some time to share some testimonies, concerning how the church progress in many parts of the state here.
那我会用一些时间来分享一些见证，就是关于我们这边一些州的教会是如何发展起来的。
You see, firstly, I would like to mention concerning, how the power of God is manifested among these people.
那首先我要来见证的是神的大能如何在这些人身上显明。
Just for example, in Mark chapter 5,
比如说在马可福音第5章，
Mark chapter 5 verse 25.
马可福音第5章的25节。
Now, verse 25 says, a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years.
25节说有一个女人患了12年的血肉，
And had suffered many things from many physicians.
那在好些医生手里受了许多的苦，
And she had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse.
又花尽了她所有的，一点也不见好，病势反倒更重了。
Verse 27, when she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment.
27节，她听见耶稣的事，就从后头来，在众人中间摸耶稣的衣裳。
For she said, if only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well.
意思说，我只摸他的衣裳，就必痊愈。
Okay, now this woman, we do not know this woman because her name was not even mentioned here.
我们不知道这个女人是谁，因为她的名字还没有记载在这里。
And besides, according to her, if I may just touch his cloth, I shall be made well. This is her faith, not what Jesus taught her.
那她说：“我只要摸他的衣裳，就必痊愈。”这便是她的信心，而不是耶稣所告诉她的。
Jesus never tell people, you come and touch me and your sickness will be healed.
耶稣从来没有告诉人说：“你来摸我，你的病就得医治。”
You see, when this woman, she had this kind of a feeling that as long as I can touch his cloth, then I will be healed.
那这个女人她就觉得说：“我只要摸他的衣裳，就必痊愈。”
You know, in the early stage of our church progress, many miracles came about like this.
那其实，在我们教会早期的发展，很多的神迹奇事都是像这里记载的一般。
For example, during the time of the apostles, during the time of the apostles, there were also cases like this happening.
所以在使徒时期的教会也有这样的神迹奇事发生。
In Acts chapter 5, verse 12,
使徒行传的第5章，
Acts chapter 5, let us see verse 12.
使徒行传5章12节。
And through the hands of the apostles, many signs and wonders were done among the people.
主借着使徒的手在民间行了许多神迹奇事。
Verse 15.
15节，
So that they brought the sick out into the streets and laid them on beds and couches, that at least the shadow of Peter passing by might fall on some of them.
甚至有人将病人抬到街上，放在床上或褥子上，指望彼得过来的时候，或者他的影儿照在什么人身上。
And verse 16 says, Also the multitude gathered from the surrounding cities to Jerusalem, bringing sick people and those who were tormented by unclean spirits, and they were all healed.
16节说到，还有许多人带着病人和被污鬼缠磨的，从耶路撒冷四围的城邑来，全都得了医治。
You see, did you notice that there's something very weird happening here?
有没有发现这里有很奇怪的事情发生？
See, in verse 15, they brought the sick out into the streets and laid them on beds and couches, that at least the shadow of Peter passing by might fall on some of them.
16节说到，这些人将病人抬到街上，指望彼得过来的时候，他的影儿可以照在这些人身上。
Now, did Jesus teach this kind of message to the disciples, to the apostles?
耶稣有跟门徒传达这样子的信息吗？
Obviously not, yeah,
当然
because
没
we
有。
have never heard about this.
因为我们之前也没有听过这些事。
But how is it that these people, they brought up the sick and laid them on beds and couches so that the shadow of Peter can fall on them?
那这些人为什么又能够把这些病人抬到街上，指望着彼得过来的时候，让他的影儿照在他们身上呢？
So this is just like the woman with the flow of blood for 12 years.
那这个就跟那个患了12年的血肉的女人，她的情况是一样的。
So they were thinking, as long as the shadow of Peter can fall on these people, these sick people will be healed.
他们觉得说，只要彼得的影儿照在这些人身上，他们的病就可以好。
We take another incident in Acts chapter 19.
那我们再来看另外一个例子，使徒行传19章。
Acts 19 verse 11.
使徒行传19章11节。
Verse 11 says, Now God worked unusual miracles by the hands of Paul.
11节，神借保罗的手行了些非常的奇事。
Verse 12, so that even handkerchiefs or aprons were brought from his body to the sick, and the diseases left them, and the evil spirits went out of them.
12节，甚至有人从保罗身上拿手巾或围裙放在病人身上，病就退了，恶鬼也出去了。
You see, unlike in chapter 5, they used the shadow of Peter to heal the sick.
那不像在第5章，他们用彼得的影儿来医治病人。
But here, they use the handkerchief or aprons of Paul to heal the sick.
那正好他们是用保罗的手巾或围裙来医治病人。
So, you see, in Sabah, we have cases like this also happening.
那在撒巴，我们也有这样子的神迹奇事发生。
There was one occasion when I was accompanying Elder John Young into one of our native churches in the interior.
那有一次，我陪着杨约翰长老去到一个土著人的教会。
We arrived at a place called Matanoi. You know, that Matanoi, actually at that time, they built a small hut from bamboo alone, you know, where they can congregate there to worship.
那他们我们就到了一个叫 Matanoi 的地方，那他们就用竹子建了一个很小的一个小屋子来聚集聚会。
There were so many people gathered there to listen to our message.
那当时有许多人聚集在一起，为的是要听我们所要传的福音。
And I was interpreting the message.
那当时我是在做翻译。
You know, Elder John Young, he pointed out to a lot of containers, you know, around the pulpit. There was just like a platform, you know, which is a bit higher level, where they put a lot of container, some beer bottles and things with water inside there.
那杨约翰长老就指着讲台周围的很多盒子，那这些盒子有些是啤酒，装啤酒的。
So he was asking me, what are the contents in this container, in these bottles?
那他就告诉我说，这些盒子还有这些啤酒瓶里面装的是什么？
Actually, I did not know at that time.
那当时我其实不知道里面装的是什么。
So after the service, I asked some of the members,
那在聚会过后，我就问了当地的一些信徒，
and they told me that this is holy water.
他们告诉我说这是圣水。
I was so shocked. Where did you get the holy water?
我非常的诧异，我问他们说你从哪里拿到的这些圣水？
So they said, oh, during baptism, because the deacon told us that during baptism we have the blood of Jesus in the water. That's why we collected this water there.
他们就告诉我们说，是因为在洗礼的时候，执事告诉我们说，洗礼的时候那是耶稣的宝血，所以我们将洗礼水装在这些瓶子里面。
I asked them, what is the purpose of collecting this water and putting them here?
那我问他们你们这样子来收集这些水，还有把这些水放在这里的目的是什么？
So they said, oh, this is, we use this for medicine, you know. What kind of sicknesses? As long as we eat, we drink a little bit of this, it will heal us.
那他告诉我说，这些其实是药，不论我们得了什么病，我们喝这个就能得医治。
So when I told Elder John Young, he was laughing at me.
那我告诉了杨约翰长老之后，他就笑了。
So he told me that this is not the teaching of the Bible.
他说这不是圣经的教导。
But then he also said, in China, in the early days of the church in China and also in Taiwan, they also practiced this before.
但他说，其实，在早期中国和台湾的教会也有这样子的事情发生。
And they also found it to be very effective.
那他们也觉得这个是十分有效的。
So I asked the members, how many of you who had been sick and then after drinking this water got healed?
那我就问信徒们说，你们当中有多少人是在病了之后喝了这个水得到医治的呢？
So many of them, they just put up their hands.
很多人都举手。
So when I told Elder John Young, I said, many of these members, they have this kind of experience.
我就告诉杨约翰长老说，很多的信徒都有这样的体验。
But Elder John Young told me, you have to stop them not to do this again.
那杨约翰长老告诉我说，你要阻止他们不能再这么做了，
Because if they continue to do this, it becomes a heresy.
因为他们如果继续这么做的话，那就会变成纯异端的了。
Because the Bible never tell you to collect water during baptism for healing purposes.
因为圣经从来都没有告诉我们说要在洗礼的时候收取洗礼水来医治病人。
But as long as we have faith, when we pray, God will heal us.
那只要我们有信心，我们祷告的时候，神就会医治我们。
That's why you see, even during the time of Jesus, people just feel that if I just touch his cloth, my sickness will be healed.
所以，甚至是耶稣时代的人们也相信说，只要我触摸他的衣裳，我就可以得医治。
But Jesus did not, stop them. But Jesus can accept the fact that these people, they are very simple-minded, when they think about this like this.
那当时耶稣也没有阻止他们，因为耶稣可以接受当时的这些人，他们是非常简单的信心。
We have a brother. He just passed away a few years ago. this brother, he was actually a pastor of another church.
那我们曾经有一位我们有一位弟兄，他在几年前过世的。那他曾经是其他教会的牧师。
He actually during his baptism, I was there, and he told me he had been a pastor for around 10 years.
那我有在他当时受洗的时候，我有在场。那他告诉我说，他在其他教会当牧师大约有10年了。
Now, how is it that he came to join us?
那他又是如何来到我们的教会呢？
It was because he had cancer of the liver.
是因为他得了肝癌。
So he had been going to see a lot of doctors and use up a lot of money.
那他去见了很多的医生，也花费了很多的金钱。
He had a son. He had a son who came to know this preacher Timothy. Yeah, at that time he was a preacher, and later on he was ordained as an elder. Yeah, Timothy.
那这位弟兄那这个牧师他有一个儿子他就认识了提摩太传道。那这个提摩太传道之后是被按立成长老。
And because preacher Timothy at that time was preaching just around that area, around the area, and it so happened that one time this son, the son of the pastor, came to see him.
那当时提摩太传道其实就是在他们周围他们附近的区域来传福音。那有一次，那这位儿子就来到了遇到了提摩太传道。
And he invited preacher Timothy to his house to pray for his father.
那他就邀请提摩太传道到他家来为他的父亲祷告。
You know, actually, when preacher Timothy arrived at the Longhouse, because this is he is a native, in the Longhouse, there were so many people gathered in that place.
那当提摩太传道到他家的时候，那这是一个土著人民的家，所以当时有很多人聚集在他的家里。
Actually, they were already making funeral preparations because they know that this pastor is going to pass away very soon.
那其实他们当时已经在准备丧事了，因为他们知道这个牧师活不久了。
So when preacher Timothy arrived at that place, he found that this man, actually he was not very old. He was only in his 60s, and his whole body was swollen.
那他提摩太传道的时候，他发现这个人他其实并不是很老，他大概只有60多岁，但是他的全身都浮肿起来了。
And he was very weak and was sleeping there, and the color of his face was very pale, the color of death.
那他是非常虚弱的，然后他当时是在睡觉，那他的脸是非常苍白的，就是好像死人一般。
So preacher Timothy said, I can't do anything. I will just pray and leave. And about 3 weeks later, I will come back and see what happened.
那提摩太传道说：“我没有办法做任何事情，请我可以祷告。那我祷告之后，我就会走。那3周之后，我再回来看一下会发生什么事。”
So when preacher Timothy was praying, at first he was praying, in understanding, so that the people can understand. And then the Holy Spirit moved him to pray in tongues later on.
那提梅泰传道就开始祷告。那刚开始他是用悟性祷告，但后来圣灵感动他，那他就用灵言祷告。
And so when he was praying very earnestly, for God to give him a chance, so that this sick person can be healed, and to lead others into the true church. So the Spirit of God really worked among these people.
那提摩太传道就迫切的祷告，求神能够赐给他一个机会，能够带领能够赐给他一个机会，让他得到医治，并且带领所有的群众能够来信我们的教会。那圣灵的工作就非常的明显了。
So after that, he left the place, and then only 3 weeks later he came back.
那之后他就离开了那地方，3周之后才回来。
And when he came back, of course, all the people were not there already. And then he saw an old man, like an old man sitting at the corner of the house.
那他回来的时候，当然，那些其他人都没有在，那他就看到了一个老人家坐在房子的角落。
So he approached this old man and asked him, "Do you know that the sick man by the name of Pundas, what happened to him?"
那他就近前到那个老人家去问说：“你认识这个生病的 Pontas 这个人吗？他之后发生了什么事情？”
And the old man said, "Oh, I am Pundas. I am the sick man."
那这位老人家就说：“我就是 Pontas， 我就是那个病人。”
Because at that time, all the swelling, because at that time, when Timothy met him the first time, he was so swollen and looked very plumpy, But now he becomes so, so skinny already,
那因为当时提摩太传道第一次见他的时候，他浮肿得很严重，所以现在他变得非常瘦。
So he told Timothy that after the prayer, his body start to shed off all the water, and then he was totally healed.
那他告诉传道说，祷告之后，他的身体就开始慢慢的将水除去了，然后他就痊愈了。
So even Preacher Timothy was so amazed, to see that, God worked a wonderful miracle just because of a short prayer.
那甚至是提摩太传道，他也十分的稀奇，看到神行了这样奇妙的神迹奇事所需要的就只是一个短暂的祷告。
So this man by the name of Pundas, he also requested Timothy to come back and organize evangelical meeting, so that he can call up all his friends and relatives and all the neighbors to come and listen to the message.
那这位老人家 Pontus 就也邀请提摩太传道能够为他们安排组织一些布道会，然后他可以来召集他的所有亲朋好友来听福音。
And thank the Lord, you see, Timothy went back a few times, and then so many, almost the whole village, came to listen, and many of them decided to accept baptism.
那感谢主，提摩太传道就回去了许多次，然后很多人都来，整个村子的人都来听，那很多人也来信了，然后接受了洗礼。
During the first baptism, Preacher Timothy also invited me to join.
那在第一次的洗礼，提摩太传道也邀请我一起来参加。
So that was the time when this Pundas, the pastor, also got baptized.
那一次，也就是这个牧师 Pontus 他受洗的那一次。
I remember at that time there were about 80 of them who got baptized.
那当时大约有80人要受洗。
After the baptism, we went to another village. Also, the relatives of these Pundas, they were waiting for us already at another place.
那在洗礼过后，我们就去了下一个村庄。那下一个村庄也是 Pontas 的弟兄的一些亲戚在等着我们。
Because this Pundas was quite popular, being a pastor of another church, and actually he converted a lot of people into Christianity.
那其实这位Pontas 这个牧师，他其实是蛮出名的。那他也使很多人来信主，成为基督徒。
But unfortunately, after he felt sick, he could not do anything.
但很可惜的是，在他病了之后，他就没有办法继续传福音了。
So now, after he accepted the truth, he also wanted his followers to join this church.
那现在他接受了真理，他也希望跟随他的人也能够来得到这个福音。
So I also followed Preacher Timothy to the other church, to the other place called Balantos.
那我也就跟着提摩太传道到了下一个地方，就叫 Balantos。
And I did not know there were so many people waiting for us there.
我不知道的是，那边竟然有这么多人等待着我们。
So after we spent, I think, about 3 days there, and then we hold quite a lot of services, preaching the message of truth to them.
那我们大概花了在那边待了3天，那我们就举办了很多场聚会，来向他们传扬真理，传扬福音。
So before we left, many of them decided to accept baptism.
那在我们离开之前，很多人就接受了洗礼。
So Preacher Timothy says, it's better that we just baptize them, and then later send in preachers to pastor them.
那提摩太传道说，那我们先帮他们洗礼，然后呢之后再差派传道还有工人来牧养他们。
So we fixed a time for baptism, and it so happened more than 100 of them came for baptism that day.
那我们就选定了洗礼的受洗的那一天日期，然后呢就多过大概有100多人来受洗。
After that we left, and then according to Preacher Timothy, later on he also baptized a few times, and all in all, just because of the miracle concerning Pundas, the pastor, there were more than 400 people who joined our church just because of that miracle.
那之后我便离开了，然后提摩太传道告诉我，他之后也有在行了一些洗礼。那因为这位Puntas 弟兄来受洗的人，总共合起来大概有400多人。
So we know that miracles, signs, and wonders play a very important part to convert people or to attract people to join us.
那我们知道来使人来信主或者吸引人来信主神迹奇事是一个很重要的一部分。
Although we know that signs and miracles do not save us.
我们知道神迹奇事是不会拯救我们的。
Because even other churches or even the idol worshippers can perform a lot of signs and miracles.
因为其他教会还有甚至拜偶像的人，他们也可以行许多神迹奇事。
That's why we must not emphasize too much on signs and wonders.
所以我们不能太过强调神迹奇事。
Because according to Matthew chapter 24, verse 24,
因为根据马太福音书24章的24节，
Jesus has already warned us. Yeah, in Matthew 24 verse 24 says, "False Christs and false prophets will arise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect."
耶稣已经告诉我们说，将来因为假基督、假先知将来要起来行显大神迹、大奇事，倘若能行，连选民也就迷惑了。
So we know that not only in the true church, we can perform signs and miracles. Even other churches or other religion can do the same thing.
我们知道，不只有真教会才能行神迹奇事，其他的宗教、其他的教会，他们也可以做到。
That is the reason why so many people have been deceived.
也因此，很多人就被欺骗了。
So the moment the moment these people they come to believe and got baptized, what is more important is to teach them the truth.
那在这些人来受洗、来相信的时候，最重要的是就是教导他们真理，
Because only the truth that can really save them.
因为只有真理才能救他们。
You see, like in the case of Bundas, although so many of them got baptized, but because of shortage of divine workers, for a number of years, the GA Sabah was not able to allocate some of the full-time workers, full-time preachers, to these areas. That's why quite a number of them, they just left us also.
所以在Pontas 弟兄这个例子里面，虽然很多人来相信，但是由于工人的缺少，然后撒巴总会也没有办法，有1-2年没有办法差派很多工人去来牧养他们，所以很多人也离开了教会。
This is indeed very sad, because without the truth, they will never be able to understand the importance of believing in Jesus.
那这是很可惜的，但是因为没有真理，他们就不能够明白信耶稣的重要性。
I would like to share with you another testimony, concerning the time when we start distributing these evangelical tracts.
那我还要分享一个见证，是关于我们当时开始来发配福音小册。
At that time, it was still in the 80s or early 90s, when we started a lot of these evangelistic services.
那个是80年代的事情，就是90年代初我们当时举办了很多的布道会。
At that time, Elder John Yang and also Elder Xie Sun Tao, from Taiwan, they also came over to Sabah to help us.
那当时杨约翰长老还有从台湾来的谢顺道长老也来到沙巴来协助我们的圣工。
So I remember there was one occasion when a lot of these youth were being mobilized to go around distributing these invitations and evangelical tracts to the houses,
那当时有很多的青年人被鼓励去发派那些传单还有福音小册给居民们。
It so happened that one group of them, because they divide into so many groups, one group of them with I think 3 or 4 youth will go to a certain place, and then they will start to distribute the leaflets, the tracts.
那他们当时把青年们分成很多的小组，那一组可能大概3-4个人，他们就到一个地方一个地区，然后就开始发传单。
And it so happened that when they arrived at this residential area, they were standing outside the gate, and then calling out to the residents to come out and receive the invitation cards and tracts.
那有一个小组，他们就到了一个居民区，他们就站在门的外面，然后跟里面的人说，请他们出来来拿这些传单、福音小册。
So there was this young lady who came out, and we did not know that this young lady, she was one of the leaders of another Christian denomination.
那这时就有一个年轻的女士从里面出来。那我们当时不知道的是，这位女士其实是其他教派的一个领袖。
So when she saw she saw that we came from the True Jesus Church, she was very furious.
所以她知道我们是从真耶稣教会来的时候，她非常的愤怒。
So she just took the tracts and then they scrambled it and then threw it into the dustbin.
那她就把传单收过来，然后给她挤在一起，然后就给她扔到垃圾桶里面。
And then she went into her house, and then so the youth actually was standing. They were startled, to see her like that, so furious.
然后他就回到他自己的家里面。那其实当时的青年们其实他们都被吓到了。
So after a while, this lady, maybe her conscience, went against her, telling her that she should not do a thing like this.
那之后可能这位女士的良心责备她，告诉她说她不能做这样子的事。
So she came out and took up the papers from the dustbin and then opened it up and read.
所以她就出来把那个传单从垃圾桶里面拿出来，然后开始读。
And then she found that all the message, inside the evangelical tracts was so good.
他就发现说，这些福音小册里面的很多的信息是非常好的。
And she felt very guilty of being so rude to the youth who distributed these tracts to her.
那他所以就觉得之前对待这些青年人们这么的不礼貌，他就觉得有些心里不安。
So after reading those evangelical tracts, she just placed them on a table next to her bed.
那读了这些福音小册之后，他就把它们放在他床旁边的一个桌子上。
So that night, when she was sleeping, she had a dream.
那天晚上睡觉的时候，他就做了一个梦。
And in the dream, she saw that this world was totally, in chaos. There was earthquake and people were running and crying and shouting.
那他在梦中梦到这个世界十分的混乱，那时候有大地震，然后四处的都是人在跑来跑去，然后在大叫。
And she was among these people.
那他也就是人群当中的一位。
And then she was also trying to find a way out.
所以他也是在想办法逃跑。
Because she saw a lot of dead bodies everywhere.
因为他到处看到的都是尸体。
She saw a very bright light very far away.
那他看见远方有一个很亮的光。
So she started to run towards the light.
所以他试着向光的那个方向跑去。
And of course, she had been running for quite some time, and in the end, she approached the place, the light. It was on a small hill, and then she saw a very beautiful building with the name True Jesus Church on the building.
他就跑了许久，然后他就到了那个光所在的地方。那他是在一个小山坡上，那是小山坡上有一个很漂亮的一个建筑物，写着真耶稣教会。
So that was the moment when she woke up from her sleep.
那时他就从梦中醒来了。
And when she woke up and opened her eyes, she saw that the light came from the tracks that she put on the table.
那他醒来的时候，他发现这束光是从他桌上的那些福音小册里面发出来的。
So after that, she was thinking, I must go and listen to the message that they are going to give.
所以之后，他就对自己说：“我必须要去听他们的道理。”
Because later on, when she testified to me concerning how she joined our church, she said she hated this church so much.
所以之后，他向我做见证的时候，就是关于他如何来信教会的。他告诉我，他曾经十分的恨恶这个教会。
Each time when she heard about the name of the True Jesus Church, she would like spit, and to show that she really hates the church so much.
所以每一次他听到真耶稣教会这个名字，他非常的生气，他就想要就是说涂抹这样子，因为他非常的讨厌这所教会。
But it so happened, at that time, Elder Shesunta was the speaker, during the evangelistic service.
那刚好那时候在布道会的时候，谢顺道长老来主领。
So after I think 2 or 3 nights of evangelistic service, she was really moved by the Holy Spirit.
那大概在2-3晚的布道会之后，他被圣灵感动。
She realized that this is indeed the church with the power of God.
他就发现这真的是含有神教会含有神能力的教会。
You see, all along she had been so fervent in her other church, and she had never felt, power, experiences like this before.
那其实之前他在他自己的教会里面是非常的热心的，那他也从来没有体验过这种能力。
So I was thinking, if the Holy Spirit did not guide her by giving her this dream and seeing the church in her dream, definitely this person will never come to join us.
所以如果圣灵没有带领他，让他在他的梦中看到真耶稣教会，那这一个人是绝对不会来我们教会的。
So we have to pray to God and to help us when we want to evangelize to these unbelievers or Christians of other denominations.
所以在我们想要向基督徒或者其他教派的基督徒或者是非基督徒传福音的时候，我们要向神祷告。
Thank God, this sister, she joined us and was very fervent, and later she was actually a chemist, a pharmacist, but after a few years she passed away already.
那感谢主，这个姐妹来相信了之後，她非常的熱心。那她其實是一個藥劑師，那過了幾年之後就去世了。
She also brought her younger sister and another brother to the church.
那她也帶了她的妹妹來，還有另外一個弟兄來來教會裡面。
Okay, before we end our service, I would like to share my testimony on how I become a preacher.
那在我们结束之前，我想要来和大家分享我的见证，关于我如何成为一个传道。
You see, in my case, this has a lot to do with Elder John Young.
那其实我成为传道的一个很大的一个原因，是因为杨约翰长老，
because I was interpreting for him for many years.
因为我当他的翻译很多年，
And she also encouraged me many times,
那他也不
telling me that you know, no matter how successful you may be in this world, either one day you will have to leave them all behind.
他也不断的勉励我，告诉我说，不论你在这世界上有多么的成功，你总有一天是要将这些东西撇下的。
Yeah. The most important thing, if we can do something for the Lord, yeah, we will have our reward in heaven.
但如果你可以为神做一些事情的话，那在天上就有你的奖赏。
But I always tell him off that I'm not a suitable candidate, not a potential worker.
那我经常就告诉他说，我不合适，我不是那个有潜能的工人。
I told him because I'm not educated in Chinese.
我告诉他说，我不会讲中文。
Because even from my primary education, during those days in the 60s, I only study English.
因为在60年代的时候，在我上小学的时候，我只学过英文。
And then later on, I studied a little bit of Malay.
那我之后也学了一点马来语。
So because I am not proficient in Chinese, and most of the articles of our church were in Chinese, so I told him that it will be a setback for me.
那我告诉他说，因为我中文讲的不是很好，那很多教会的一些刊物都是用中文写的，那这个会成为我的一个很大的阻碍。
But he told me, you are not going to become a preacher for the Chinese, you are going to be a preacher for the natives.
那他告诉我说，你不会成为中国人的传道，你要成为土著人的传道。
So even though he said like that, I still cannot accept the fact that I have to come up full time as a preacher.
那即便他这么说，我还是无法接受，我要来做全职的传道。
In the year 1976,
那在1976年的时候
I had 2 accidents.
我发生了2次意外。
Because I rejected, Elder John Young after he encouraged me again and again to take up this full-time ministry.
因为在杨约翰长老不断的鼓励我来献身做传道，我却拒绝了他。
So I had 2 accidents. One accident was, the car we were driving together with some brothers and sisters, it smashed onto the bridge and then somersault almost to the riverbed.
然后那我就发生了2次事故。那其中一个事故就是我们开的一辆车，它就撞到了桥上面，然后呢就翻到就翻滚到河边。
Although the car was total loss, but thank God, you see, I was not hurt at all.
那虽然车是完全的损坏了，但感谢神的是，我并没有受伤。
Only one other sister she was badly hurt.
那只有
some of her arms were dislocated.
那只有另外一个姐妹，她就有受伤，那就是她的胳膊可能脱臼了。
But thank God, no one died. Although the car was really in very bad shape.
那感谢神的是，虽然车真的是损坏的很严重，没有人死掉。
And the second one was I was driving a car and then listening to the music without realizing that there was a railway crossing in front.
那第二个事故就是我也是在开车的时候在听音乐，但却没有发现前面有一个火车道。
So only when I was so close to the railway crossing, I saw the train passing by.
那我直到我非常接近那个火车铁路道口的时候，我才看见火车从我面前经过。
Even though I immediately applied the brake, but I should say it was already too late.
虽然我立马的踩住刹车，但我觉得那时候已经太迟了。
I do believe that God was the one who stopped my car, or else I would be totally, damaged or killed by them.
我相信是神把我的车让我的车停下来了，要不然我一定会被火车碾过去，然后死去。
So after that, I realized that life is so fragile.
之后我就发现，生命是非常脆弱的。
Anytime, accident can, destroy me or take away my life.
任何时候都有可能发生意外，使我丧失生命。
So after that, in the same year, there was sometime in October 1976, I received a letter from Elder John Young.
所以在同一年在那些事情发生之后，在1976年的10月份，我从杨约翰长老那边收到了一封信。
And in the letter, he told me that he is going to start a theological training in Singapore, starting from January 1977.
那信中他告诉我说，他要在新加坡开办神训班，那是从1977年的1月份开始。
He told me to get everything ready and to be in Singapore on the 14th of January.
那他告诉我说，把一切东西都收拾一下，然后要1月14号到新加坡。
Because the training is going to start on the 16th of January.
因为神训班的课程是要从16号，1月16号开始。
So when I received that letter, I was at a loss. I did not know what to do.
那当我收到这封信的时候，我其实很迷茫，我自己也不知道要做什么事。
Because he is not giving me any option at all, It is just like a command. You must do this.
因为他没有给我任何的选项，他好像就是吩咐我，你必须要去这么做。
So, at that time I was really in a dilemma. I was thinking, how am I going to answer him?
那当时我真的非常的纠结，我在想着说我应该怎么样回复他呢？
So, because at that time I was working with a company, it's a Dunlop company selling these tires and mattresses, and these are golf accessories and so on.
那我当时其实在一个公司上班，那这个公司是在卖一些轮胎床垫等等。
So I had an old car, a Volkswagen, old car, the Beetle, the Volkswagen. And so I was thinking, if I can sell this car within 7 days, I was praying to God, if I can sell this car within 7 days, it means that the Lord wants me to go and attend the theological training in Singapore.
那我当时有一辆很旧的福士车，那我就向神这么祷告说，如果我能在7天之内把这个车卖出去，那我就去参加神训班。
Because in my heart, I was thinking it is impossible to sell the car within 7 days.
因为我心想说，要在7天之内将这部车卖出去是不可能的事，
Want to use that as an excuse for not going.
所以我想用这个作为一个不去的理由，不去的借口。
But after praying to God, I almost forgot about it because I did not even place a mark on my car to say that this car is for sale and so on.
那祷告之后我自己也忘记了，甚至没有说弄一个牌子放在车上说这个车是要拿来卖的。
So I think it was on the third day, and I was having coffee just in a coffee shop.
那大概是过了3天之后，我在一个咖啡厅里面喝咖啡的时候，
Suddenly there was a young man, he was having this kind of a mechanic or technician uniform. He came to me.
那有一个年轻的人，那他身穿的是好像机械修理师的衣服。
And when he came to me, he was pointing at my car because my car was parked in front of the shop, the coffee shop. And then he said, "Is that your car?"
那他来到我面前，他就指着我的车我的车当时是在咖啡厅后面，他就说：“那是你的车吗？”
I was a bit shocked because I thought my car was blocking someone.
那我有点吓到了，我就心想说，是否是因为我的车挡住了其他人的路呢？
But when I looked at the car, it was okay. So I said, "Yes, that is my car."
那我看了那个车没什么事啊，那我就说是的，那是我的车。
And then he asked me, "Do you want to sell it?"
那他就突然问我说：“你想要卖你的车吗？”
And I did not know, spontaneously I said, "Yes, I want to sell it."
那我自己也没有发觉那就很随口的就说了一句是的，我要卖。
Then he asked me, how much are you going to ask for?
他就问我说：“你想要卖多少钱？”
Actually, I want to tell him I want to ask for 1,005 ringgit, Malaysian ringgit. 1,005 would be a bit expensive already. So I said, "You are a mechanic, then you should know better."
那我原本是想要他卖出1500马来币，但是可能有点太贵了，所以我就告诉他说：“你是做机械修理工的，你告诉我可以卖多少钱？”
Because I bought that car almost 8 years ago at a price of 1,200 only.
因为其实我是在8年前用1200块买的这辆车。
Of course, 1,200 at that time was quite a big sum of money.
所以1200在那时候是蛮大的一笔钱的。
So when I told him that you are a mechanic, you should know the price better. How he answered me, "I'll give you 3,000."
所以我告诉他说：“你是机械修理工，你应该告诉我一个价格。”他竟然告诉我3000块钱。
I was so shocked
我当时是非常的惊讶，
because that car, the worth that car don't deserve that money, not worth that money.
因为其实那辆车真的不值那个钱。
So I was so guilty. I said, "You haven't tried the car. How do you know that this car costs so much?"
所以我有点心虚，我就说你还没有开过那辆车，你怎么知道这辆车值这个价钱呢？
Then he said, "It's okay. I'll pay you 3,000 for that."
他说没有关系，我会付你3000块钱。
So I remember at the time he took out some paper and asked me to write my particulars and then sign at the end.
那我记得当时他拿出了一张纸，然后叫我写下我的一些信息，然后最后再签名。
And when I was writing down my particulars, I felt very guilty, and I told him that the fourth gear sometimes will will dislocate, it will jump out by itself.
那当我在就是填写我的个人信息的时候，我就很心虚。那我就告诉他说那个第四档有时候会
Especially when the road is not level, if you meet bumpy places or loopholes, it will jump up.
特别是如果路不是很顺的话，如果路不是很顺的话，那它就会坏掉。
So he answered me, in a very gentle manner. He said, "Don't worry, I will repay it for you." He said.
那他就告诉我说不用担心，非常温柔的告诉我说不用担心，我会把它修好。
So when he took up the 3,000 all in new notes, I was so shocked because I've never hold so much money, especially new notes like that.
那当他把3000块钱给我的时候，那他还是用崭新的这些钱给我，然后我真的是非常惊讶，因为我从来都没有拿过这么多，而且还是崭新的钱。
And I took up 300 ringgit, and gave it back to him.
那我就拿了300块钱还给他。
Just to repay the fourth gear, which was not in order, not functioning well.
就是为了来还那个第四档，因为第四档不是有点坏了。
And then after that, he took my key and drove off.
那之后他就拿了我的钥匙就开走了。
And after that, immediately, just like, I just woke up like that.
那之后我才突然醒悟过来。
And then, my face at that time was really pale, I was so shocked. I said, my car is sold out already. I must go to Singapore.
那当时其实我是满脸苍白的，然后我心想着说，我的车现在卖出去了，那我一定要去新加坡了。
And I even did not know how to go back to the office.
那我甚至不知道我该怎么回到公司里面去。
Because during that time, you don't have public transport or taxi, so easily available.
因为那时候其实没有很方便的公共交通，那也没有很方便的不能打的。
So when I returned to the office, I immediately approached the manager and told him that I want to resign. I want to go to Singapore for further study.
那我就回到公司，那我就告诉我的公司经理说，我不要工作了，我不做了，然后我要去新加坡再进修。
Actually, the manager scolded me. He said, "You have such a good job, and you are going to quit. Don't you know that you will find it so difficult to find a good job?"
那其实经理当时就骂了我一顿，他说：“你有这么好的工作，你却要辞职，你难道不知道你不能再找到这样好的工作了吗？”
But I told him I must go because I have no choice.
那我就告诉他说，我必须要去，因为我别无选择。
So in the end, he accepted my resignation.
那他最终也接受了我的辞职信。
Of course, I have to write in later on.
那当然
officially to resign.
那当然，我最后也写了一份辞职信给他，然后正式的辞职。
The marvelous thing about selling my car is that when the car was sold out, it never appeared on the road.
那最奇妙的就是关于我卖车的这个经历，就是 车卖了之后，他从来没有在路上再出现过。
Because during those days, how many cars you can even count them? How many cars are there? Like in Kota Kinabalu at that time.
因为那个时代，其实你是可以数，在路上有多少车，你是可以数得过来的。
And more or less you can, recognize them. But that particular car which I saw never appeared.
所以你其实可以认出很多车来的，但那一辆车，我的那辆车之后就从来没有出现过。
Only later on I realized, that the young man probably was not a human being.
然后我之后才发现说，那个年轻的人可能不是不是人类。
I had a feeling that he was an angel.
我觉得那应该是一位天使。
I saw that car within such a short period of time. I think less than 10 minutes,
那就是我看到那辆车，然后就可能当时在10分钟之内就开走了。
Yeah. Because normally when you want to sell a car, it will take more time, isn't it?
因为其实原本如果你要卖一辆车的话，你应该会花更多的时间。
And the marvelous thing is that he did not even check my car whether it is okay or not.
那最奇妙的事情就是，他甚至都没有去检查我的车，看看我的车是否还可以用。
He just want my car to be sold out, that's all.
他只想着就是我能卖出我的车。
Because if that car was not sold out, then I won't be a preacher now.
因为我如果没有卖出这辆车的话，那我现在就不会成为一个传道。
So that was how I gave up my worldly career and then take up preaching.
那这就是我如何放弃我世界上的工作，然后来献身成为传道。
Anyway, thank God, I don't regret for having done that.
那
God
感谢
has been kind to me over all these years.
那感谢主，我也不后悔当时做出了这个决定，因为神这么多年都恩待我。
See, time passes so fast.
那时间真的是过得很快。
From 1977 until now is already more than 40 years.
1977年到现在已经过去了40多年了。
And I have served the Lord in more than 10 countries.
那我也在10多个国家侍奉过神。
Seen a lot of miracles and seen a lot of the grace of the Lord, the mighty work of the Holy Spirit.
那也见证了许多的神迹奇事，见证了神的恩典，还有圣灵的大能。
I do believe that I have not struggled in vain.
我坚信的，我没有我的工作不会落空。
Just like Paul in his last letter, the 2 Timothy chapter 4, he did mention like this.
就好像保罗在他的最后的一封书信提摩太后书的第4章这么说。
2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, he says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and have kept the faith.
4章7节，那美好的仗我已经打过了，当跑的路我已经跑尽了，所信的道我已经守住了。
You see, when I look back, I try to recall how the Lord led me these 40 odd years. I really find it it was so wonderful indeed, how the Lord really led me to serve Him like this.
回想过去40多年，神是如何带领我来侍奉他，我觉得真的是非常的奇妙。
Actually, I don't deserve, to serve true and living God.
事实上，我真的不配来服侍这位又真又活的真神。
If it is not because God gave me no choice and no way of rejecting Him, that I have to take up this ministry.
如果不是因为神没有给我选择，所以我不能够拒绝他来出来献身当传道，我就不会在这里。
May all praise and glory be to our Lord Jesus.
愿所有的荣耀颂赞都归于我们的主耶稣基督的圣。